Hello, in this video I will show you how to create this to-do list tab on the right using vibecard with less code in less time than the previous time using a new feature called macros. So I'm going to switch to a new scope where I have the macros I'm going to use predefined. So let's start with our new component called item. And I'm going to start using macros right away, which macro called hbox, which is the horizontal arrangement of items. I'm going to continue using macros. We're going to explore them later. One called checkbox that has a value called completed and a handler attribute called which we're going to set with set completed. And the second one is going to be an input field with value set to the attribute text. We're going to define next, and a handler that we'll call set text. We're going to add the two fields. Completed will be a boolean, and text is going to be a text. And we are going to say that it's going to be disabled if completed. And if this works, we are going to have a to-do item. Now let's move to the items component. It's going to have a field called items of type list, and we're going to also use a macro called vbox, similar to hbox but vertical. And we're going to use yet another macro called button action. Of course, I'm just exploring macros in the extreme. You don't need macros for everything. It's going to be a label called a task. Notice the double quotes is because the dynamic attribute, if we want to pass a string, we need to quote it. Handler is going to be on add item, which we're going to define next, and it's going to take a single argument called item, which is the component we just created. Let's create the input on add item. It's going to have a single argument called item, and it's going to push in items an instance of the item component we just created and got as argument with completed set to false and text set to do the thing. And push in items is auto-generated by the fact that items is a list. So our input handler is finished. We can hide the input handlers, and we are going to show now the to-do items. So we need a vbox. Let's add some extra class to it. So since it's a dynamic attribute, I need to quote it. And we're going to create the first HTML tag, a div, which is going to be repeated for each item in items, and it's going to have some style. Inside the div, we're going to render it. It is the thing being iterated, and we're going to add another macro called button remove. When clicked, it's going to call the handler and remove in items add with an argument. The binding key is the key of the item being iterated, which is the one we want to remove. And if this works, we're going to have our app. We can edit things, mark things done, remove things, and add tasks. So this is the to-do app, and let's explore the macros now. I have them here. They have this icon. You can create them by control or command click in the plus to create a macro instead of a component. And we have they have only arguments. The arguments are dynamic values. So handler by default is on remove, and the argument passed is event. And it's just HTML button with some classes. And on click here, we have the macro argument handler and arg are replaced here. And so this is a simple one. Action is pretty similar, but has the label argument 2 with default to action and is expanded here. Checkbox is just 2 arguments, and input is 3 disabled. by default is false, but if you set it, it's going to be replaced there. HBox and vbox are more interesting. They have a class attribute set to an empty string, and it's going to be replaced at the end of the classes the component already has, or an empty string. And inside it's going to expand the default slot, which is all the childs in the macro call that are not assigned to an explicit slot. In the case of vbox, I named the default slot explicitly, is the underscore. So for example, if I wanted in items to put this div in a specific slot, I would do add slot header or something like that, and it's going to be placed in the header slot in the macro if there's a slot called that. So this was macros in vibecard and how to use them to implement the to-do list app with in a higher level of abstraction of reusable components.